I'm Abhishek, and you're listening to Connected by mParticle, where we interview the people that help create some of the most beloved brands in the world. These folks have a unique ability to bring together seemingly unrelated people and technologies to deliver some truly amazing results. On this episode of Connected, I sit down with Phil Crawford, Chief Technology Officer of CKE Restaurants, to discuss all things customer experience in the hospitality space. Phil shares his perspective on what the future of loyalty looks like in QSR and how he tackles the age-old build versus buy conundrum. Phil, I can't thank you enough for making the time to chat with me.
Yeah, look, it's my pleasure. I always love doing these things and talking all things hospitality, but more importantly, talking all things tech within hospitality, because that's what I believe day in, day out.
100%. And I guess that how's that saying go? It's every company is a tech company. I don't know if that's quite true, but there's some truth to that. So Phil,
Nowadays, for sure.
100%. And I was going to say, before I put the cart before the horse, would you mind giving the audience a quick introduction about yourself and what you do?
Sure. Yeah. Obviously, the name Phil Crawford, that kind of was a first giveaway. I'm currently the CTO at CKE Restaurants, which is the parent holding company for a couple brands, Carl's Jr. and Hardee's, that both have rich heritage and rich history inside of the American, burger industry per se and sandwich industry. We also have two sister concepts, which is Red Burrito and Green Burrito, which are inside those two individual restaurant chains that are found around the nation, but they're also found, internationally as well. And the great part about what we're doing at Carl's Jr. and Hardee's is we're kind of reinventing the brand, right? We're taking a technology first approach. So you mentioned earlier about technology kind of leading, and how we're reevaluating our brands from a digital first capacity, especially as the consumer sentiment has changed. I've had the blessings to be, brought to this company about 2 years ago. And prior to that, I've had some amazing career opportunities to work with brands called Yard House, which was a bar and grill concept out of Southern California that eventually got acquired by Darden. After that, I had an amazing run with Shake Shack, ironically, another burger concept out of New York City, as their head of technology, CIO, and kind of built the tech stack that was there that, and kind of was paramount in the launching of that brand as we know it today, and also the public company it was. And then another amazing opportunity to take a chief technology information role with Godiva. We all love chocolate, and handle that worldwide technology operation. So I got to see the world. And then I ended up in Nashville. So look, I mean, it's always been in some way, somehow, hospitality and technology. And, it's in my blood. I think, like I said earlier, this has never been a job for me. This is always just a passion. And I'm so blessed to work in this industry and in the technology side of the industry and really get to play in the playground day in and day out. That's why I love it.
Wow. I mean, starting with your what you're currently doing, Phil, and then just going back down the list of sort of where you come from. Every time you mention one of those brands, you put me in a place in time, right? Whether that was me driving through Florida on my way in high school to like orchestra practice, right? And swinging into a Carl's Jr. for a burger, or, I'm based in Jersey City. So many times commuting back from the office, picking up a Shake Shack burger. So
I can relate. Look, I'll be honest with you. Like my first stint in this industry when I was 16, and this is gonna come full circle. My first restaurant job was at Carl's Jr. So,
oh, wow, okay.
So now you come full circle and you're right on the executive level of the same brand. But yeah, right. Growing up in Southern California, there's these iconic brands that, are now staples across the nation. You kind of know where they grew out of their infancy to where their maturity is. And we're all identified by a sense, taste, smell, sight, sound. And we all have these memories based off of food and hospitality. And that's 100% the passion that we have. And then the similarity of our feelings tied to an event, which is we're surrounded by food, which is awesome. It's like an old song, right? Back then you bring up the old song, oh, I hated that song because my girlfriend and I loved it back then. I hated my girlfriend back then, vice versa. That was my
Yeah.
wedding song now. Oh, I love it. So you each have these affinities with different kind of things throughout your life. And I'm glad that the concepts I've worked for have such a brand, recognition, and people just are so passionate about them and just love them.
The intersection of brand and technology is interesting. And I there's a question down in this conversation that we are absolutely going to get into, but you mentioned something important, right? We're talking about, beloved restaurants and, CKE restaurants group being no exception to this. Let's get into the influence of technology and data now in sort of what CKE Restaurants does. Could you tell us a bit more about how you think about data and customer experience at CKE?
Sure. So we kind of went on this journey when I started to really put the customer in the center of the nucleus, right? When it came to understanding our consumer, we all had PMIX, right? We did some email mailers and such, but we never really got to understand the consumer. So when we designed our current ecosystem, we went out and said, let's get the CDP done first, the customer data platform, realizing that we're going to have this unique opportunity to capture data, guest data, sales data, whatever you want to call it, data in a nutshell,
Right.
and centralize it to understand our consumers and how they interact with us. What restaurant? What's their favorite items? How far are they driving? What kind of devices? Like that in and of itself becomes the correlation that we can now create this personalized experience with our guests rather than just being in a good old number in a system. We'd have great partners with Punch and mParticle and Olo and our point of sale vendors, Parbrink and Expedient, and really kind of figure out these different ways, as well as our development companies through Bounteous and Hathaway or SagePath or HappyCog. Like you had to really kind of corral all these people and understand that this entire ecosystem we're building is about data and the data flow and how it interacts different parts throughout the journey, and then make the information real time and actionable. So we can understand if something's going wrong in the moment and make the change, or going right in the moment and make the change. Or look at a guest. Why haven't you been back in 6 months? Or, hey, you had a bad experience. How do we make it right the next time? So the data journey from a consumer standpoint was extremely important. And that's why I'm saying the nucleus was around it. A lot of folks launch an app and a web and a loyalty program like, yeah, we're done. But you don't really understand the guest. You don't understand the intrinsic value and what that guest brings to you, because they're going to give you more information than you believe you'll ever get. But you got to do something with it. And having that proper core platform allows you to have all those quote unquote unlocks, and then gives the leverage for my digital marketing teams, led by Jason Seeley and April Fever and Mike Schauder, to go ahead and create these experiences that are unique and then create the brand affinity.
It goes back to that comment I made about, every company is sort of a tech company now. I think the way that you guys are approaching your strategy around customer experience, I almost think of that as like you're listening to your customers through data. And what I'm almost getting from this is like, you really can't listen to your customers effectively without having sort of this groundwork in place.
Yeah, you hit it on the nose. I think the hospitality industry in and of itself has been way, 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 way late to the game. You look at the airline or travel industry. Oh my gosh, think about the loyalty and the information they know about you. Think about retail, right? Hospitality was thrust, and I believe this, in the last 3 years because of the COVID pandemic, we just were always late to the game. I think that's more domestically than internationally. I think internationally has always been ahead of it. You go overseas to China and Japan, and they're already doing robotics and data science and so forth. You also look at, other companies in retail that have started up truly as a technology company first and foremost. You look at the Stitch Fixes of the world in retail that are completely an e-commerce space, all about data, right? Or you look at other, big box retailers that are all about data. I think the hospitality has a unique opportunity to really understand it, because we have consumers that want to interact with us in not just a typical, retail or e-commerce, but, delivery, retail, e-commerce, like traditional birthdays, like all these different things that the retailers have already set up that we can almost mimic and duplicate in a variety of different ways. We just had to have the core systems in place. And our late entry into the game, which I've said before in different discussions, in some way can be an advantage. We can understand people have done wrong in other industries or even our own, and then make the proper adjustment and course correct as we go. But again, the overall sentiment is data in our industry never really was a big thing. Let's call
Yeah,
it what it was. Data was taken for granted, right? And call it our own egotistical mindsets of how it was, or it just wasn't important. But I think over time, we've seen the value of big tech companies that really hone the data and really do something with the data. They've multi-honed it. They have a network effect, right? We talk
right.
about, these different groups. I won't name the names. They're doing amazing jobs because they understand. And the consumer at the same time has shifted, right? They've
Sure.
shifted to a digital first mindset, and you better be ready for it because it's here.
And that's an interesting point and a nice segue, Phil, into like my next question, which is, could you talk a little bit more about the role that technology today has, like particularly in hospitality and QSR, in helping build and maintain a great brand and customer experience?
Yeah, look, I think it kind of goes back. It's a three-headed animal when it comes to the experience model, right? You got to have a good product, you got to have a good experience, but you also have to have the mechanisms behind technology to aggregate all these different data sets and all these different information, so the business can make informed decisions. But more importantly, the consumer knows you're making positive decisions on their behalf. You have to have the voice allowed for the consumer to give you the good, bad, and the ugly, as we call it. Good feedback is feedback, bad feedback is good feedback, and so forth. The technology stacks that are out there, right, in the field are always evolving. So you need to have that digital first mindset that as the consumer sentiment shifts, you have to have the ecosystem in place in order to drive it. But more importantly, you have to have that alignment internally to ensure that the technology stacks you have are robust enough and agile enough, there's your buzzword for the day, to accept and go with it. The technology stack itself is going to continue to evolve and change. There's no more of the days you buy, product X and it just sits there and does its job, because the technology is moving so fast. But again, so is the consumer mindset, and so is the consumer sentiment. There's this thing in analytics called collisions, right? And the collisions are when you have hit an apex and your competition is going to exceed that apex. You look at the old Blockbuster and
Oh,
Netflix
sure. Yep.
dynamic, right? There is a collision point. And in certain companies, they're in this collision point where the demand, and the technology has shifted so well, and the company needs to shift accordingly. And if you don't, that collision effect, one way of a company gets unfortunately destroyed, another company rapidly benefits and grows.
I think that sums it up in a nutshell, right? It's you cannot discredit, I think, the rapidness of which consumer behavior changes, the landscape of how a customer wants to interact with you, right? I could imagine even something as simple as number of customers that actually walk into a physical, restaurant to make an order today versus drive-through versus mobile, right? I mean, the percentages of those have shifted rapidly, I would imagine, over the last couple of years.
They have.
Yeah.
I mean, look, you have drive-through, pickup, curbside, delivery.
Yep.
Right. You have all these different. We're talking about drones. We're talking about autonomous driving vehicles that can drop food off. Like, certain consumers never want to talk to a human. They want to talk to a chatbot, or they want to talk to a mobile device. And all they want to do is walk in, never see a person, grab their food and go. Yep. There's some folks that want to have a super lengthy conversation and ask about the weather and, how do you make the burger? Like, it just depends on the individual, but you need to make it the most frictionless environment you can for the guests. But I think a lot of companies also don't think about the employee side of it too. You need to make it extremely easy for them to do their job with the technology, because the technology component should be a tool for success, a tool for unlock, a tool for efficiency, not a hindrance. So many times people put so much tech into a business, it actually has the adverse effect. It affects the efficiency of the organization negatively, which is what you don't want to do. The idea behind the technology is to be the enabler, right? And I think that's why, and I've said it before, not every technology is going to be in every place.
Sure.
It has to make sense for what your brand is. Like, we're doing some radical stuff here at CKE that I can't imagine my mom and pop place down the way will ever do.
Right.
It just depends on where you're at in your business life cycle, but also your technology life cycle. And is the juice worth the squeeze, as we say, right?
100%.
Which is always important.
100%. And yeah, I mean, so wow, I didn't even think about sort of the other side of that, but I love that, because I think the message here, if there's a brand listening, is at the end of the day, really the role of technology in any business and whatever scale you're in is to reduce, it's to create a frictionless road, right? It's almost to create like a highway system to easily be able to adjust and meet the needs of whatever your customers need in whatever channel they want to interact with you at any point in time. And it's that, I think more than anything, it's the frictionless highway, as well as the sort of opportunity and ability to be flexible, right? Because if tomorrow you need to adjust and say, to your point, right? Maybe 2 years from now, drones are the next thing, right, Phil? We're never leaving our couches and a drone comes through our window and drops off our order. Which, I mean, maybe that's not so crazy, but we got to be ready for that. And I think setting up that infrastructure to allow you to adjust for that hopefully avoids you as a brand hitting that collision point, right?
Yeah, and then also on the inside for the employees too. Look, employees are consumers as well, right?
Sure.
They go to other brands too, and you need to make their experience as frictionless as possible too. Onboarding, offboarding, payroll, back office inventory. I mean, all the things you got to do. Like, it's one big overall organizational mindset, but it's also an organizational culture mindset that has to be taught to the top down, right? Like, if we're all putting our feet in to the pot and say we're all going digital and we're all going frictionless and we're all going, whatever you want to call it, if not everybody is aligned, we got a problem.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of what CKE has been successful in these last couple of years is our technology mindset has been, it's going to be an organizational culture, and people don't like change. It's just human nature. Yeah. Right. But we have to drive the change and the continual change. There was, gosh, I forgot the name of Disney's. It was like a long time ago when they were talking about the example of getting rid of the old animation and going Pixar. Like, what are you doing? You're taking away our bread and butter. We're going digital. Like, it's an all-in mindset. The benefit will be on the other end. It's the same thing with hospitality and technology.
Yep. Yeah.
Just not with princesses and frogs.
Yeah, same difference, but no, I get what you mean. I get what you mean. Let's move to a bit of a tangential topic. I wanted to hone in on loyalty and what that means to you. I think we can all agree, right? Loyalty is critical to any brand's customer success or customer strategy. But can you speak a bit about how you think of driving customer loyalty from a tech and data lens, and making you be sort of a fortune teller here? Do you have any sort of insights on maybe what the future of loyalty could be in QSR?
Yeah, look, I think loyalty at this point is table stakes. Every major brand has a loyalty platform in some way, a reward system. There are some that don't, right? I mean, we won't name their name to know who they are, but it's okay. Like, they have a business model that doesn't require it. But I think in certain points, loyalty has become the way, again, because the restaurant and hospitality industry is coming late to this game. And you see this in regards in, retail, and you see it in airlines where loyalty is the play, right? But more importantly, on the loyalty thing, the consumer itself wants to be rewarded for being a patron. There's a movie called Up in the Air. I know you've seen it with George Clooney. And it's about a guy that goes around the nation and travels in 7 million miles. And at the end, he gets his gold or metallic 7th club thing.
Right. Like, the captain, I think, comes down from the airplane. And I remember that scene. Yep.
Exactly. But if you imagine how much data they have on him, where he's been, how he's gone, the logs, it's the same thing on the restaurant side of it, right? I have multiple points of data entry on an individual, how they interact with us, where they interact with us. I alluded to it earlier, what they buy, what they don't buy, what they're surfing, so on and so forth. And the beauty of that is then we can then take that information and help drive some of the product modifications. We can drive consumer sentiment. Now, there's things we're going to do in the future as well, where we tie it back to OSAT scores with efficiencies in restaurants, yada yada yada. But when it comes down to the tech side of the loyalty data itself, it's paramount in order for us to understand the habits of our consumer. It's paramount for us in how we design our systems and solutions. So we all get the email that says, hey, free chicken sandwich. Dude, I'm a vegetarian. Why are you sending me a chicken sandwich email? Like, what are you doing? Like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't correlate. If I can understand who you are and I can personalize that contextual thing and says, hey, try our Impossible Burger. It is vegetarian. You might go, dude, they do know me because they know what I've bought. I've given them preferences, right? Even take it to the next level. We talk about the futuristic here.
Yeah.
Like, what if screens changed when they're contextual when you open the app? It's not the same loading screen that shows you every item. It shows just what you had and you just see the veggie burgers, right? And you just see these options. Or vice versa. When you walk into a restaurant, it identifies who you are and it says, welcome back, Phil. And it's small things like that. It's the old bartender analogy back in the day. I'd walk up to the bartender I've known for 5-10 years. Hey, Phil, welcome back. Here's your Kettle One martini up with 2 olives on the bar when you sit down in your favorite seat. That just needs to be digitalized, right? And that's where the data from loyalty gets us to, right? Our preferences, our likes, our dislikes. So again, we now have this one-to-one relationship with our consumer, and the consumer knows it. And then and as a result, they're going to come back to us because they know you're not just a number in the cog. You actually are a human to them, and you're appreciated for their patronage.
The point about like personalizing sort of a screen, or I might open an app one day, and if I'm a vegetarian, I don't even see any menu items that aren't vegetarian, right? Like my whole layout and the colors and the menu items I'm looking at, or you know, you could apply the same thing to maybe an allergy, right? And it's funny because little things like that would absolutely, I think, change the game for people. And when I'm hearing a consistent trend here, right, which is regardless of if it's another component of your customer experience strategy, loyalty just being one of them, it still all comes back to, you know, understanding who your customer is. Because to your point about the offering a chicken sandwich to a vegetarian, you might be thinking you're doing a good thing, like you're giving somebody a discount, but you actually have the opposite effect, right? Like you are actually potentially turning customers off because you don't understand what they care about.
Yeah, and you know, and a lot of those systems, if you design these correctly, and again, we'll kind of go uber geek here. If we build machine learning into our systems, or artificial intelligence, as we all keep talking about, and we write the proper algorithms and we write the proper rule sets, you can take the human element out of it when it comes to that decision matrix, and you let the AI or machine learning use the data, mine the data, and act upon the data in order to have the output you want. And it's part of, you know, a Harvard analytics thing that I'm doing right now in school as well, is how do you look at the what if and your what outcome you're looking for? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? And work back into it utilizing artificial intelligence. And a lot of companies are data rich, right? But they're quality poor. A lot of companies are data rich, but they're actionable. I think that is where this next generation of loyalty goes to, is truly conversational, truly personalization, right? In the future, where it is not you and me answering every single preference and going into a portal and creating a campaign and launching the campaign and then doing a report afterwards. Like, it literally is autonomous. The systems do it. And all we're getting is the output and the reward. And then they can make the human element to it, because I mean, you don't want, you know, Terminator 2 to happen.
Sure.
You want a little bit of a human oversight, but at least you get the output you're looking for. And then you can add the human decision matrix within there. Was this campaign right? Was this campaign wrong? Was this personalization tactic right? Was it wrong? Like, you need to have that mindset of how data can work for you, but you also have to have a little bit of the guts to try it and learn from it.
Yeah, I mean, well, it sounds like such a simple concept of, like, you know, tell me the desired outcome, right? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? And let technology, you know, in the form of AI and ML help you do that. And I think so many people sort of almost get that backwards, right? It's almost, hey, I don't really know what I'm trying to accomplish, but I know I want to build, you know, a campaign this way, right? And it's sort of, we got to flip that thinking, which is, what is the outcome we want to accomplish? And then sort of what is the best, you know, technology set that's available to us to do that. So, I mean, listen, there's nothing, I think what I'm excited about more than anything, Phil, is some of this stuff coming to market and being more available, across more brands in the near future. Because I think what I've learned so far, and I think we're halfway into our conversation, is that there's just a ton of potential here. Like there is just a lot of things that brands, wherever they are, right, whatever their strengths are, whether that's loyalty, whether that's in the data, there's a lot of opportunities that I think technology provides, right, to contributing to the bottom line of your business. And to your point, maybe one of the big components of that is, eventually having someone like yourself come in and have the guts as well to try things. But okay, so sorry, that was a bit of a trailing thought that went nowhere, but
no,
I want
to. You're on.
Okay, all right, yeah, please. I like if there's something I'm saying that's I'm off my rocker. I want to know it, but
oh, you're not off your rocker. Nothing's off the rocker, right? That's what makes all this stuff cool. There are no bad ideas and thoughts, right? When it comes to when you're trying to design the next legacy, it's about learning, right? And making the changes and fail fast and learn quicker, right? That's what you have to do, which is why I think there's a certain part of our segment of the restaurant industry and hospitality industry that's trying things. And some people are seeing massive successes because they are the risk takers. They're the leading edge. And other companies will follow. Like Starbucks is talking about doing Web 3.0 and redesigning their loyalty programs off of NFT. Like, wow, amazing. Yeah. But that's cool. Like they're way ahead of where I am right now, which is great. Let them learn and let them see how it goes to market. And maybe we're a fast follower. They're the things that we're doing, right, that we might try different from a loyalty standpoint. But at the same time, as we talked about initially, like I know my customer, I know what I can and can't do, what my customer will or will not accept, given our infancy in our digital journey. So we're not as mature. So we can't take the risk in particular in that thing. But the other things we will do because we're understanding what the consumer insight are telling us.
Okay, so this brings us to, I think, a question, Phil, that as a CTO, I couldn't help myself. I had to ask. It's sort of maybe as cliche as they come, but this ties back into sort of that age-old build versus buy conundrum. I would love to hear your perspective in terms of, when you're looking for a technology partner or a consulting partner, an agency partner, what's your decision-making criteria on, hey, like, is this a part of the strategy or the technology that we should build ourselves and own and maintain? Or is this something we should outsource and buy?
So I've lived both worlds. I've built some amazing, cool technology, right, from the ground up. And it's done the business well during that time period, right? And there's certain things that are still in place today and certainly old companies that work for that were all custom built internally. And you have to do the risk versus reward, the long-term ROI internally to have developers on staff, right? And code bases and whatever be credit cards and PCI and CCPA and PID. Like you need to weigh out those options. Internally, what we decided to do at CKE was really go the opposite side, right? We're doing the best of breed approach. We've built our tech stack with interchangeable parts. It's the old like Henry Ford model of manufacturing, it's talking cars and hamburgers, two different things. But the idea here is for us to buy. So if we have an integration API layer, right, that we can then plug into the tech stack, whatever solution it would be, whether a software as a service or a product as a service or a platform as a service, and we can inject it into our system, it's a lot quicker to market. And what we're doing to that is that it allows us to partner with the partners that was redundant, partner with the partners that allow us to utilize their expertise in their individual segment and plugs into our ecosystem rather than building it out directly. Case in point, if I wanted to go out and build a geolocation services myself, go hire developers, spend a ton of money on learning and how it works, all the different mechanisms, sure there's open source and so forth, versus the speed to market where I could go have a partnership with somebody, plug in the API and it's there, and that's all they're developing on, and they already have a team of resources, it makes more sense. It's also, there's some accounting and financial applications of build versus buy as well, and write-offs and so on and so forth. We won't get into all that because I can't even balance my own checkbook.
Yeah, sure.
CapEx and OpEx. But
Okay.
in our world, it works best for us to do the buy option. And there, it also then, with regard specifically when we build out our business requirement documents, when we talk about partnerships, there are very specific things we need to have with regards to integrations. And that is our key to our success, is going to be the integrations. And so the partnerships are there, the integrations are there. That doesn't mean we're never not going to do something internally on our own. I mean, it just depends on where you're at in your development life cycle as a company, and if you have the resources internally. And we all know the labor constraints we have right now in finding qualified talent. It's tough out there, no question about it. But again, our strategy out of the gate was to put the best band together we could. Best lead singer, best bassist, best guitarist, best drummer, best keyboardist, and build that plan. And that plan is serving us well right now. Could it change in 5 years? Absolutely. But at least we build it so it's interchangeable and simple enough. We either break certain parts out, or we have a bad experience with this partner. We just plug a different partner in. It sounds easier said than done, but you know what I mean. Rather than having to rewrite the entire architecture.
I do, Phil, and there is no silver bullet. There's not one variable you can evaluate. I think in knowing whether you should build something today or buy something, and that's fluid as well. To your point, that could change in 5 years. But I think even just you talking about philosophically how you guys think about this at CKE, what I heard there in best of breed also, I think the other side of that best of breed point is flexibility, right? Because the fact that you guys don't have all your eggs sort of in one basket, right? Your ability to say, you know what, this particular component of our tech stack isn't serving the needs of the business anymore, right? It did really well the last 4 years, but it just isn't for where we want to go. Of course, I think there's always a switching cost when you do things, but that's a whole lot less painful and quicker to do. You go on one extreme and you build everything, right? If you built this Frankenstein tech stack where you built your own email provider and your own geolocation service and everything, it sort of becomes a nightmare to swap out new technologies, right? And you're building a lot of breaking points and tech debt. But on the other hand, I think going all in on, and I'm not advocating for this or against it. It may make sense for certain organizations, but going with one provider for just everything, I think you also run that risk of, well, geez, if that provider is not, if the pros don't outweigh the cons on that single partner or tech provider, it becomes really painful, right? To then move and do something else.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. But you got to have that. You got to have that decision matrix inside your organization that supports it. Right? There's been some amazing restaurant companies that have built everything from scratch, right, and it served them very well. But that was their ethos moving in. We're going to do this. It's never been done. There is nothing to buy. I have to build it, period.
Right.
Other ethos have said, I'm going to buy something and mold it around what I want. And be able to give a little bit here, but gain a little bit there. Just depends on where they're at, right? It also comes to speed to market, which I think is a very big component that people have often overlooked. There's a point to be patient, and there's a point you can no longer be patient. You have to be impatient. What do you want to get to the market, and what other factors are driving that decision, right? If I had an infinite amount of money and an infinite amount of time,
sure,
might be giving you a different answer. But I don't have $4 billion to spend on technology for a restaurant chain. I wish I did. I just don't.
One day, Phil. Never say never. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. No,
wrong kind of apple. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course, exactly. Wouldn't that be nice? But
tell me about it.
Geez, okay. I mean, this is it's sort of bringing me to we've talked a lot about data and technology and its sort of applications, but Phil, I guess one question I wanted to ask you, taking a step away from the tech component of this is, I imagine that in order to do anything meaningful at a brand as large as CKE is, it probably takes a vast network of people in cross-functional roles coming together to sort of contribute and make it happen. But Could you talk a little bit about the people element? Sort of in your role as CTO, like when you guys decide on a new business initiative or, launching something, who do you typically work with in the business to like drive something like that?
It's a great question. And I think a lot of times people think that there's some mad scientist in the back room that makes a decision. They say, oh, go and have fun and conquer.
Believe me, I did. I did for a long time. I thought that's how the world worked.
Yeah, IT people know everything. Just don't listen to anything we say, but do everything we don't say. Anyways,
Right.
We actually have a great leadership team that really is collaborative because we each have our own areas of expertise and discipline. But when we have these radical ideas, or we have these different things we want to go do, or different initiatives, it really kind of starts at the top, right? What I mean by that is that's the decision brain trust that might have an idea, right? But equally, and even sometimes more importantly, is we really value the input from our teams, especially in the technology teams. Like, I want the team to think outside the box. I want the team to be radical thinkers and entrepreneurs and think of things that we haven't thought of. Of course, it has to funnel up and it has to be funding and approval and so forth. But I think that's the good dichotomy an organization needs to have, right? It needs to come with the people that are in the ground or in the field and doing these things. It's the challenge of trying different things and give people a voice to express a desire for a new initiative or a new strategy or a new technology stack. The leadership part of it is also the point to debate it, right? At the top of it, let's debate. Does it make financial sense, right? Does it fit into our ecosystem? Is it a bold strike? Meaning, is it going to be a revolutionary thing that changes our brand? So there's different levers that people different pull, but I think, the most specific thing when it comes to, let's just say, a digital first, it has to be led from the top down, meaning if the leadership's on board and the VPs are on board and directors are on board, everybody has to be stroking in the same direction, like in a canoe, right? If they're not, you're going to spin in circles. Everybody's got to be on the same stroke, and everybody has to have the same belief, right? And the same desire to get the same outcome. And that really starts from the top. It doesn't matter where the source comes from, but that's kind of the overall, input that we have is, and we have to be aligned and we have to have the same strategy. And then we need to tell about the strategy and talk about the strategy and talk about the priorities all the way down. Otherwise, you go in circles and nothing ever gets done.
I work in customer and client success. And, one of the things I'll say over the years, this is not industry specific or brand specific or even company size specific. The number one, I think, criteria that I've seen play out over and over, like, when I work with a client is it's not about whether you have the best technology or the most money to spend or any of that. I mean, you could have the Ferrari of a tech stack, right? But to your point about if the people at every level, and I think that's key as well, are not aligned, like if marketing and product are not aligned in terms of understanding, hey, like, are the products that we're building or developing the experience is going to contribute to the goals and KPIs that marketing is being held to? Are the engineers and developers that are actually coding the individual, names of different screens in an app, right? Are they talking across experiences so that, screen view one on a website is the same screen view one on an iOS application? If those teams aren't in lockstep, like, I don't care what technology you have, like, to me, we'll figure out the technology space or how to compensate for the fact that we don't have budget to do something. Give me a team who truly is collaborating across functions and talking to each other and is on the same page. That to me is a single biggest indicator if we're going to succeed in the long run.
That exactly correct, right? And you got to communicate it, and you got to continue to communicate it and communicate it until you're done, until you can never be done communicating. I think there's never a message that can't go out that doesn't have a uniformity, ethos behind it. Right. What I mean by that is, if you guys are having this bold strategy of a bold strike or something else that's different in order to change the culture of the company or change the initiative, right? The best part about that entire thing is, again, you got to continue to message and talk about it and be open about it, right? And allow for feedback to happen as well, because that's how things evolve and things mature. right? You just can't build it and develop it and put it away and say, okay, go and grow on your own. It doesn't happen. It's got to be continual messaging and interaction and collaboration.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, all right, Phil, we're getting towards the tail end of this. I just had a couple more questions, and I mean, the next one is like, what's next for you and CKE restaurants?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, we're really taking a deep dive in artificial intelligence. So we are experimenting in about a dozen restaurants right now. AI through the drive-through. We're actually talking to a machine in essence, and it transposes that into the point of sale system. So we're freeing up our most invaluable assets, our employees, from doing the mundane task of taking orders, and now we're just executing on the hospitality and making of the product. That's number one. The other big initiative we have going on too, internally, is obviously on the back end of the machine learning for data analytics. Those are going to be some change sets for us that are revolutionary for our brand, right? So we're kind of doing some things in partnerships with strategic companies that will help us be better as a company and help us better position our consumer experience through the loyalty and leveraging other different things we talked about earlier, because now we can start really honing the information to make quantified decisions. It's not so much, I guess you can say, front facing, but it will be when you start getting some more of the contextual experiences you're going to get with regards to our loyalty programs and overall consumer ordering experiences, whether it be in store or through a digital device.
I'm very curious and interested to see how that plays out, but I think the best way to experience that is, is continuing to check out what CKE is doing, both in store and digitally, right, as a consumer.
But
okay.
To Nashville. I've got some restaurants here in Nashville doing it now. And there's signs and it's messaging. And I went to the drive-thru yesterday, and I could look at all the metrics after the fact and how efficient it was, and I got my order right, and I got my loyalty points. And then on the back end, I can see the data flow. Like,
yeah,
it's like watching a child, be born and then growing up and maturing, eventually going to college and getting married. Like early infancy, right? But there's a lot of potential there, and there's a lot of internal excitement to say, wow, this really has some teeth.
Yep.
Right? Like this could work well for us in certain markets and certain segments, and we'll see where it goes.
Listen, if I'm ever driving, that's what I'm saying, not too distant future, I'm driving back down US 27, back in Florida, visiting my hometown, and I roll into a Carl's Jr. This is going to be, I'm looking forward to that. But
right on.
All right, Phil. Last couple of questions. These are fun. These are really, I want to take I'll be the customer success guy and Phil the CTO out of this, and just say, as a consumer, I gotta ask, what's one of your favorite brands or experiences, and why?
Oh, you're gonna go deep on this one. Like, I'll be honest, I'm a Chick-fil-A fanatic. My youngest daughter works at Chick-fil-A.
Okay.
I mean, she's in the industry, which I love. Just their experience, right? Their technology is simple and clean, but their hospitality is unparalleled. And I think that really is a big thing for the QSR segment. Really, I mean, you can't go wrong. And I kind of idolize what they've done and some of the core values they've instilled all the way down to their hourly employees. They're an amazing brand and an amazing company and great leadership.
Amazing. Say no more, and you're not getting any disagreements from me on there. All right. So Phil, last set of questions. They're 5 rapid fire questions. So these are mostly the first 4 are really yes or no or sort of Boolean questions. And then the last one,
okay.
I got to ask just because I am a huge foodie. So let's get through these. All right. Pineapple on pizza. Yes or no?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Winter or summer sports?
Summer all day.
That's all right. I'm with you. I'm with you on that one. Okay, I should have asked you this in our prep before we did it. I don't know if you're a big NBA guy or you follow basketball, but LeBron or Michael Jordan?
Jordan.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. Frozen yogurt or ice cream?
Ice cream.
All right.
Homemade ice cream at that too.
Amazing. And then Phil, I gotta ask, and let's keep it local, right? Let's keep it to Nashville. I want to get your favorite restaurant in Nashville, Tennessee.
Great question. I'm in Nashville, the home of hot chicken. It's got to be Hattie B's. Hattie B's is amazing. The Nashville hot chicken and the product quality they've got there, and their black eyed peas. I mean, you cannot go wrong. It's a go-to.
All right. Shout out to Hattie B's. And Phil, with that, this is a wrap. Geez, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to jump on the podcast today.
Absolutely my pleasure. I thoroughly enjoyed this. This was an absolute blast. These are always fun and exciting, especially when you can just kind of talk shop and talk tech and talk hospitality. So again, an absolute pleasure. And I thank you for including me.
Thanks so much for listening to this conversation from Connected by mParticle. For more on this episode, you can check out the show notes and transcript on our blog. You can also subscribe to the podcast on any major podcast player. If building great customer experiences is important to you, sign up for our monthly newsletter, mPulse, which includes a very short list of the best blog articles, use cases, and industry reads from throughout the month. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.